You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Excited to get started with our second house call of the weekend. Hopefully you got to tune in yesterday where we answered many of our community's questions on all things wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging, and of course, everything in between. So today, really looking forward to this. I want to get started right out of the gates. I'm actually about to get on a flight in probably about 45 minutes or so. So what I want to do is record this podcast for you, and then I'm going to hop right onto my flight back to Boston. Looking forward to getting back. Quick trip, but can't wait to get back and see my family. So what we're going to do is we're going to get right into it. First question is from Krista. Krista is asking, "Hi, Dr. Cabral. Thank you for the great podcast. I've been listening to your advice since I heard you on another podcast about a month ago. I'm 42, 5'7", 130 pounds. Type A personality, so primarily Vata. I was diagnosed with MS about 11 years ago. I immediately decided to start exercising to give myself a sense of control over the condition I had no control over. I currently work out 5 days a week as well as walk daily. I'm trying to work yoga back into my routine. I eat primarily plant-based diet, gave up grains and dairy in 2017 when I decided to stop listening to my doctors that had me on prescriptions for migraines, fatigue, and bladder control on top of Tesfidera. I'll probably mispronounce that. That's a pharmaceutical drug for MS, and I believe they also use that same pharmaceutical drug for psoriasis as well. Able to get off of that drug, still getting flushing and occasional headache. Maybe it's from that drug. And there's some gut-based issues, wondering where to start. Since I had so much success in my recent diet changes, I've been wanting to do food sensitivity test. One more complication, I had breast implants done 6 months before my MS diagnosis. Not a single doctor has suggested a correlation, but recently I've seen a lot of information that suggested surgery could be the root cause of the MS. I plan on getting explant surgery in the next 12 months, so I'm not sure what I can do in the meantime or what to do after the surgery. Thank you for reading my long email. I appreciate any suggestions. Okay, so let's get right into this. I've actually answered this type of question before. I'm going to look up the exact one because this was on breast augmentation and autoimmune disease. So there is a direct correlation, and you've now read it yourself by doing the research, that when you do have implants put in your body, it could be honestly be anything. It could be hip implant, breast implants, any type of implant. The difference with breast implants is that you're either using some type of plastic or silicone or whatever it might be, and it doesn't even have to leak, because what can happen is your body knows and recognizes that that's a foreign body inside your body, and so your immune system starts to become overactive. Now again, your body's not messing up, there's no autoimmune-based issue, but of course you do end up with what we call an autoimmune-based disease. And the reason you come up with that, or you get that autoimmune-based disease, which is the body attacking the self, is simply because you've put something in your body that is now a foreign to that body. And yes, that's ramping up the immune system. The same thing can happen with intestinal permeability and leaky gut. That's why over 90% of all autoimmune issues really do stem from gut-based issues. Now, in your case, that 10% might actually be from the implants that you had. On episode 611, check out that show. I did speak about this particular topic. So I know you've only been listening for about a month now, but if you can, try to go back to those previous shows. I do touch on a lot of these topics. So what I recommend for right now is running an organic acids test. A food sensitivity test absolutely would be great. You can actually do a combination package. You could purchase both of those, and I believe you save like $100 or maybe even more. So that's a great place to start. If you do have intestinal-based permeability, if you have Candida overgrowth, if you have SIBO, if you have any of those things, we'll also correct that while at the same time you're waiting to have your implants taken out. So hopefully that helps. Hill is up next. Hill's asking, "Hi, Dr. Cabral. Firstly, your podcast has seriously changed my life, and I appreciate all your sage advice. My inquiry is regarding alcohol use and SIBO. I'm 29. My GI diagnosed me with SIBO after taking a breath test, and since I began the Candida Protocol, I was an athlete in high school and college and had to stick with a strict diet consisting of veggies, fish, no sweets, and occasional starches. I've maintained this diet to present day. I was a pretty heavy drinker in my 20s and continued to drink on the weekends up until my diagnosis with SIBO. Can alcohol use cause SIBO? And or what is the relationship between alcohol use and SIBO? Thanks. All right, Hill, great question. So for people who don't know what SIBO is, I throw that around quite a bit. It stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. What that means is that your intestines, or your small intestine, which is the first part of the intestines before it leads to the colon or large intestine, is actually made up of, it's a more sterile environment. It's made up of more of the lactobacilli-based bacteria, and it's not supposed to be overgrown. So SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which means there's an overgrowth of bacteria in your small intestine. Now, it could be good bacteria, it could be bad bacteria. It doesn't really matter. What it means is there's an overgrowth of bacteria, which then causes fermentation of certain carbohydrates, gas, bloating, all sorts of absorption-based issues, you name it. So, Hill, I know that you probably wrote this in a couple weeks before I did the show on this, but episode 721, check that out. I gave you the research. I actually literally named the studies that show alcohol and SIBO correlation, meaning that people don't really believe it. They've been told, oh no, alcohol could be good for, cardiovascular use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I really debunked all of those myths on that show and showed you the direct correlation, even with just 1 week of drinking, and how it leads to intestinal-based permeability and IBD, IBS, SIBO, you name it. So that's your answer, and check out episode 721. Okay, Katie is up next. Katie's asking, can you talk about Crohn's on a show? Specifically, what are the best and worst foods to eat and why? My husband has had a terrible quality of life for the past 15 years when it comes to pain and flare-ups. He gave up on his medicine and medical doctor after coming to the understanding that what he was taking led to cancer, meaning the prescription drug he was taking. He gets by with drinking Ensure and Naked Juice as his main nutrition, toast or cream of wheat for breakfast, and chicken with mac and cheese or rice as dinner. This is his typical diet for the past 6 years. He believes at this point in his journey that veggies will put him in the ER. He's not tried it, and that milk is one of the only things he can tolerate. I think he needs re-education, but I'm not sure where to send him. Yes, I've tried to get him to listen to your podcast. Thanks for any thoughts. I owe you much to you in my personal health journey. Okay, so let's just get a couple things clear. When I talk about gut-based issues, it includes Crohn's, colitis, IBS, IBD, SIBO, Candida. They're all lumped in the same group. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, for Crohn's and colitis, we also look at stress as a much larger factor as well. All right, so there's the stress part to it. Now, the reason why he's getting by on his Ensure and cream of wheat, these things are basically pre-digested. Okay, so they're very, very simple to digest, and he just doesn't do well with high fiber-based foods, and that's because his gut wall has been so broken down, he's not able to assimilate, break those things down, absorb them. I mean, he might have been on proton pump inhibitors, PPIs, or some type of acid blockers as well, so he can't break down protein that well. But the foods he's eating right now are causing massive inflammation. I mean, just keep in mind, the way to get him to really understand this is just to eat his normal diet and then run a food sensitivity test. When he sees the results on the food sensitivity test, I can almost guarantee you, can't guarantee you, but almost guarantee you, he'll see that the foods that he's eating are causing, again, massive inflammation. Now, the inflammation is keeping the Crohn's going, but I do agree that he's not going to be able to just switch over to, raw salads. I don't believe that as well. But, okay, so I'll do a whole show on Crohn's, but I want to give you the simple answer. So you're going to have him run an organic acids test to look at Candida overgrowth, SIBO, or leaky gut, bacterial overgrowth. You'll run a food sensitivity test, and if he's up for it, I'm not sure he will be, but if he runs a stool test, then you can look for H. pylori, and you can look for parasites, and you can look for other types of bacterial overgrowth, like E. coli. Once he has the data, like most guys are just data-based animals. That's right. I mean, I'm included in that, right? So it's like, well, show me the proof. Well, yeah, I mean, like, believe me, I'm in the same category. I'm a guy. That's the way we are. So I think your husband will do a lot better once he sees the data, and that he knows that the only way he's going to get better is to then reverse that process. So he's going to have to go on an anti-inflammatory, but he's also going to have to be on a low lectin, low grain-based diet. So that's very, very important to look at in the beginning. He's going to have to eliminate the pathogens, whatever you find on those lab tests. And he's going to have to calm and soothe the gut while sealing it up. And then after that, gradually reintroduce the foods The foods will all be cooked and soft and pureed at the beginning. The GAPS diet is a lot like this. I mean, the GAPS diet, which again, I'm a certified GAPS practitioner, and I can't recommend it for everyone, but it would be part of the healing process for your husband. Now, again, I would go through not adding all those fermented foods in right away, because if he has overgrowth, well, you'll want to eliminate the overgrowth before adding back in prebiotics. So that's where I would start. I'll certainly do a full show on Crohn's. I'm happy to do that. We'll call it, Crohn's, colitis, and IBS, because a lot of the people are all lumped into the same category, but I'd be happy to help with that. And I will certainly do that in the future. But I think I just gave you a pretty good place to start. So hopefully that helps, Katie. And, I wish you the best, because I understand just, people in my own family, they just, they want to get well, but they don't really want to listen. And it's hard. So I'm not saying that is the boat that you're in right now, but it kind of sounds like it might be. And it's really, really challenging. So I feel for you. All right. Amber's up next. Amber is asking, Dr. Cabral, where to begin how grateful I am to have stumbled across your podcast about a year ago now. Since then, I've been able to implement some of your protocols. Despite certain changes, I suffer from cystic acne, occasional headache, and brain fog. I'm 31, 5'9", 160, lift weights regularly, do yoga, mobility work. I've had acne since the age of 15. Okay, so you're 31, 15, so 16 years you've had acne. I've let my skin affect all aspects of my life, never felt comfortable in my own skin. I struggle with my skin. As a personal treatment myself, I chose to take Accutane, my last resort, desperation in life. I started this 2017, not even a month in. I'm beginning to feel heavy pressure in my head along with mild hair loss. Recently noticing some GI upset, terrible pain, stomach, reddish stool, orange tinged urine. Let's see what else is going on. I don't know if these correlate with Accutane. This is extremely concerning. I would like to reach out to you in hopes of a recommendation of where to go. I believe my acne is mostly hormonal. I only break out on my face. My skin otherwise is beautiful. What alternative supplements besides DIM do you recommend? If acne is due to dirty blood, how do I begin? What is the input on the drug Accutane? I'm intending on continuing the daily protocol. I love the way I felt on the 21-day detox. I also believe that I must have some food sensitivities. The reaction, thank you in advance for changing people's lives. Okay, Amber, so I've got your question. Everybody else who wants to tune in and actually see all the exact question, just go to stephencabral.com/737. All the show notes today, all the links, everything I recommend will be at stephencabral.com/737. Okay, so Amber, here's the deal. I do agree, right around 15 years old, you're obviously having some larger hormonal-based changes. And if it really hasn't changed since then, unless you went on antibiotics around, maybe 13, 14 years old or had been on them quite a bit and that caused the acne, that's a possibility. That's a challenging one, really, really important. I do agree it probably is. If it's cystic acne, it probably is hormonal-based. What I would run is called a thyroid adrenal hormone panel. I would run that about 5 days before your menstrual cycle begins. So before day 1 of menstruation, that's when I would run that, 5 days before that. And I would look at your thyroid, your estrogen to progesterone levels, at your adrenal levels as well, meaning your cortisol output, your DHEA, and looking at your testosterone as well. So let's say you have high testosterone, or let's say you have high estrogen to progesterone ratio. We'll want to correct that, okay? So we'll want to do things to help balance out those hormone-based levels. And again, you can do that through pharmaceutical-based means, or you can do that through natural-based methods. But you really do need to know where to start. Even if you were looking to do a plant-based progesterone, just from days 14 to 28 of your cycle, you would still want to actually confirm that your progesterone levels were low enough and your estrogen levels were high. So if that's the case, well, then that might make sense for maybe like 3 or 4 cycles and then wean yourself off of it and actually see if those results work as well. I certainly do recommend the detox for sure. I recommend the 21-day Dr. Bell detox. It's a good sign that if you felt well on it, that there's a lot going on in your body in terms of detoxification. Here's the deal about Accutane. Accutane affects your liver. That's known, that's proven. That's not me talking negatively about the drug. Does it work for acne? Sure. Like Accutane, again, it's a pharmaceutical drug. A lot of people use it for acne, cystic acne, a lot of times cystic acne on their back. But here's the problem. There's a reason why you have to go to get your blood tested like once a month. And the reason is that you're checking your liver counts because Accutane can actually do severe damage to the liver. Not in everyone, of course, but in some rare instances. And you having that clay-colored stool and the orange-tinged urine, that's a really good sign that it was affecting your liver as well. So here's the deal. I mean, I'd like to help you in any way that I can. What I would say is let's do some clay masks on your face. So let's use that French green clay. You can actually just look up clay mask on the podcast at stevencabral.com/podcast. Just type in clay mask, and that will show you how to actually use things to draw out a lot of the toxins from the face. You can do that on a nightly basis if you wanted to in the beginning. But then, of course, we want to do correct those hormones. We'll probably use something not just like DIM. We'll probably use a product like Adrenal Soothe. Adrenal Soothe actually helps to calm down the cortisol output if your cortisol output is high. So it has things like ashwagandha, and it has things such as rhodiola and eleuthero. There's a lot of amazing herbal-based adaptogens in it, which won't put you to sleep. It will actually just make you calmer if you start to get too stressed. And that stress, of course, can affect testosterone, and it can affect your progesterone to estrogen ratios. So, I mean, I'll just be honest, I feel that I truly am an integrative practitioner, which means that I want to use as many natural-based and lifestyle-based methodologies as possible. But I do that, I implement those after finding out your actual hormonal-based levels. So once I know your hormone levels, then I can make all of those diet, detoxification, sleep, rest, meditation, nutritional supplements, all of those recommendations come after I see your lab results. And the reason is I just believe in bioindividuality, and what works for one person, sure, it could work for another. There's a foundation, right? But I'd like to be able to change that dosage for you specifically. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Melissa is up next. She's going to be our last question, and this is a long one as well. So let's get to it. Let's look at it. Hello, my name is Melissa. I'm writing to you regarding my husband, Nathan, who had an injury 4 years ago, still suffering from ongoing headaches 2 to 4 times a week. We have sought medical advice from a neurologist and been unsuccessful in the solutions. In 2012, we were living in the far north, in southern Washington. Nathan was going out for a surf. After 4 months of not surfing, after Nathan got out of the surf, straight away he felt like he was having an earache. We having to fly in 3 days' time, and Nathan was concerned about the earache on the plane, so we decided to see a doctor. The doctor advised Nathan he had an earache and also mild conjunctivitis. He prescribed medication for both of these. Nathan commenced the treatment. 3 days later, we flew home. His headache went on for 1 week. The left side of his face and head had a funny sensation and congested nose. He decided to go see the doctor. The doctor also found that Nathan's eye had dropped a little and his pupil was unresponsive. He had minor treatment where we lived, so the doctor immediately put Nathan on a flight to Crohns upon arrival. He had scans, dissected carotid artery, prescribed medication, another scan in a year. I'm going to keep ad-libbing this question. The doctor advised Nathan he was still getting regular headaches. His eye was still drooping, getting tired on occasion. The doctor advised to see medication to prevent relief headaches. And although the artery has healed, perhaps the artery is irritated, causing inflammation. Unfortunately, the neurologist could not help and advised Nathan that he should not be getting headaches. We also changed Nathan's diet, whole food, plant-based, eliminated all coffee and alcohol. He's been eating raw plant-based diet for 3 years now in hopes that it would really heal his arteries and reverse the aneurysm. Unfortunately, his headaches are still the same. To date, 2 to 4 times per week, he takes Maxigesic and naproxen when they are at their worst. And I'm writing to you after listening to your podcast from Melissa Ambrosini, which gave me with renewed hope that we need to keep searching for the answer. We live in Australia. I'm wondering if there's any way to do testing with you to find the best way of eating for Nathan and a solution to his ongoing debilitating headaches. Thank you. Kind regards, Melissa. Okay, so let's get to the bottom of this question. Okay, so Melissa, what I'd like you to do is tune into episode 568. All right, it was a previous house call. I talked about concussions. I talked about traumatic brain injury. So I'd like you to check out that show. That will give specific recommendations that I gave for inflammation of the brain, inflammation of the arteries. Check out that show for sure. Now, but it also sounds like there's some type of degenerative or at least inflammatory issues going on with the vascular system, okay? So vascular system, meaning like how the body moves blood around the body, and that includes the smaller vessels as well towards the eye and towards the head. So there's a couple things right off the bat, that we can do as an anti-inflammatory. And those things specifically are, and again, I've done whole shows on anti-inflammatory. So if you want to go to stevencabral.com/podcasts, check that out for natural anti-inflammatories. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this one step further for you because I want to be able to make sure that I can help in some way. So I want you to go to stevencabral.com/737. That's today's podcast show notes. I'm going to link up that 568 for you on concussions. I'm also going to link up the previous podcasts I've done on natural anti-inflammatories. The ones that I'm recommending for you are higher dosages of curcumin or curcuminoids, which is turmeric. So we want to do that. I also would like to have you use a product called Boswellia. Boswellia is a really nice product as well as a natural anti-inflammatory for both nervous system, muscular-based regeneration and health. So that's the first part. I would like to make sure too, lots of green juices, smoothies, all of these things to keep the body hydrated, to work on natural anti-inflammatories as well. And so here's the big thing is that we want to also, as a naturopathic doctor, when I look at this case, obviously really complicated, I'd have to spend an hour literally speaking with you to figure out all the intricacies, right? It's just me reading it. It's not doing it justice. So if you start to run tests such as a hair tissue mineral analysis, we would also be able to look at what's going on in the body in terms of stress on the body, heavy metals, all of these things that could cause issues as well. An organic acids test, the same exact thing. Well, looking at the gut. Now, how does the gut affect the eye? Well, they don't, right? It's not a direct correlation, except for the fact that if you're not absorbing nutrients properly or you just have large amounts of inflammation. So literally, that's where I would first start. You're asking right now, and it's exciting for us because in about 2 weeks, we'll be shipping to Australia. So really excited to announce that because I know how many people email us literally on a daily basis asking if we can ship to Australia. So we would like to be able to do that, and we're just figuring out a way to be able to honestly do that. The thing that holds us back is that the shipping is just insane to Australia. It's just, we're literally going to charge you a little less than it costs to ship there, but it's still a lot to ship. So that's the first place that I would start. Natural anti-inflammatories, I would use higher levels of omega-3. If you're using our omega-3 support, then I would do at least 3 of those capsules per day. If you're using a product like Pure Omega, I would use at least 1 tablespoon per day. And what else would I recommend? The natural curcumin for sure. I would probably use the Boswellia. I would do the daily nutritional support, which is the smoothie. I would do all of that. I would also use the daily fruit and vegetable blend, which is 22 organic fruits and vegetables. I would try to super saturate the body with natural anti-inflammatories that allow the body to just calm down, to start to soothe itself. Really nothing stressful. Yes, yoga would be great, but I don't know about the inverted moves. The inverted moves might not feel good when there's some vascular-based issues. Inverted might be like a bridge or, a downward-facing dog, right? Where your head's below your heart. So we just have to be gentle for right now, but I do believe that your husband can heal for sure. It's just we have to figure this out from a base level and just make sure that he gets the help that he deserves. And you might be able to find a great practitioner in Australia without a doubt, but at least these recommendations would be great to get started. And then please feel free to reach out to my office to let me know how we can help in any way. Thank you so much for writing in. Really appreciate that, Melissa. And I do wish you the best. I really do. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this week's Cabral House Calls. I appreciate each and every one of your listens. And now I'm taking off to the airport. So thank you. Can't wait to share tomorrow's. Actually, this is a very special episode tomorrow. You have to stay tuned. I am having our first guest interview of the year. Check that out. Don't miss it. Can't wait to share this amazing human being's work with you. Take care. Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.